Incredible twist. Boy donates last $1 to secret millionaire. 48 hours later, his life transforms. Jake sat in the corner of Mel's cafe, fidgeting with the last dollar he had. It was a quiet afternoon in the small town where everyone knew each other, and he felt as invisible as a ghost. The weight of his father's recent job loss sat heavily on his shoulders, reminding him of every moment when wealth and privilege seemed to mock his very existence. The laughter of his wealthier classmates echoed in his mind. "Just another poor kid," they whispered, their words like stones in his chest. He watched the cafe owner, a kind-hearted woman who often shared her meager meals with those less fortunate, and felt a spark of determination. This was it. With a deep breath, he slid the dollar across the counter. "For the charity," he announced, feeling both a rush of righteousness and a tight knot of fear in his stomach. What if that was the last chance for him to help his family? But the thought of helping others, of making a difference, those feelings fueled his heart. As the door chimed behind him, Jake glanced to a shadowed figure seated in the corner. A man with a worn hat and a weathered face, sipping coffee quietly. Little did Jake know he was being watched, the man intrigued by his spirit and selflessness. That very act of giving pushed into motion something far beyond Jake's understanding. Days passed, tension gnawing at him as he faced the dual weight of familial obligations and his own dreams. A mysterious letter arrived 2 days later with a crisp, embossed seal that made his heart race. A scholarship for promising students? Could this escape from the label that chained him to his family's misfortune really exist? But self-doubt tightened its grip. What if he wasn't talented enough? What if he failed, proving everyone right? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Each day, Jake felt torn. Should he pursue this thin glimmer of hope that showed him a path to success? Or should he stay where he felt safe, burdened but comfortable? Figuring out his course felt like standing at the edge of a cliff with no rope. The longer he hesitated, the heavier the doubt settled in. What if he walked into the world of academia and failed spectacularly? The laughter of his peers replayed endlessly like a haunting melody. In a decisive moment, Jake was summoned before an academic committee. Armed only with his restless passion for science, he fought through the suffocating sensation of self-doubt. As they grilled him about his worthiness, he felt every ounce of criticism weigh down on him. Yet, a flicker of defiance sparked within him. He spoke passionately, articulating his struggles and visions, his fears spilling into the room. He was not just a poor kid. He was someone with potential, someone deserving. Suddenly, a voice cut through his plea. "That boy, I saw him at the cafe." The man from earlier spoke up, something piercing in his earnest tone, as Jake turned to him, hope and dread warring in his chest. This moment was no longer solely about Jake. It was a confrontation between prejudice and promise. Would he be seen? Would his truth resonate? The tension hung thick in the air, unanswered questions swirling. Jake stood at the precipice of doubt, staring into the faces of the academic committee. The words he'd prepared faltered against the possibility that he might not only fail them, but also himself. The shadow of that $1,000,000 gesture loomed large, and he felt the fear creep back in, clutching at his resolve. Then, the voice of the man from the cafe cut through the whirlwind of his thoughts. "He has potential," the man asserted with a tone that resonated like a strong chord in a symphony. It was a lifeline thrown into his sea of uncertainty. Suddenly, Jake wasn't just the boy struggling under societal labels. He was a contender in the ring. Yet, Even as support poured in, Jake couldn't shake the looming specter of his past failures. With every nod from the committee, an electric charge coursed through him, mixing stimulation with sheer terror. Who was he kidding? He had never belonged in these spaces. This was the world of achievers, not a place for sentiments born from poverty. "Tell us," one committee member prompted, his pen poised above a notepad, "what drives you?" Jake inhaled deeply. The air was heavy with expectation, and for a moment his mind raced. Did he dare confront his vulnerability? Did he possess the courage to share what lay beneath the facade? Words started tumbling out, each one trimming the layers he had carefully constructed. "I want to change the narrative. I'm not just the kid from a poor family. I'm driven by the desire to create lasting impact, to help others see beyond limits." As he spoke, he caught a glimpse of admiration in the man's eyes, motivated perhaps by some shared experience. That flicker lit a small fire in Jake. This was his story after all, an underdog's tale blooming among the cracks of life's harsh potholes. Amidst his impassioned speech, something clicked. He remembered the faces of his classmates mocking him, the weight of labels, and above all, the hunger for something more, something meaningful. He could do this. This moment was not just about academics, but about realization. He could shape his future. Their laughter wouldn't define his path. Their dismissive glances wouldn't guide his destiny. In the silence that followed, each committee member exchanged glances, and Jake felt the threshold of possibility being crossed. He had tapped into something raw within himself, a revelation that perhaps he had been capable of believing all along. Just as quickly as confidence surged, doubt threatened to cascade over him. What if this all turned out to be transient? Before he could spiral into those thoughts, the head of the committee spoke, her voice steady. "We've seen many promising candidates, but you've presented quite a unique perspective." She gestured toward the man. "It seems what you possess is the quality of resilience. That's something we value deeply." Resilience. The word washed over him like a wave, stirring something inside of him that had long been dormant. His heart raced, and he felt a yearning, not just for success, but for growth, a challenge that could redefine him beyond the flimsy chatter of his youth. The committee's final moments shifted into blurred memory as he left their office, feeling alive and renewed. But as Jake walked back into the world outside, a different turmoil set in. What now? Would a single moment like this be enough to break the chains of the past? He couldn't shake the thought that he had stood at the cusp of something monumental. And yet, how much further would he need to go to make it real? The taste of ambition mingled with the bitterness of uncertainty. Every nerve in his body tingled with anticipation, and a question loomed large over the prior victory. How would he sustain this trajectory? As he pondered the next steps, a familiar presence caught his eye. The man from the cafe, leaning against a lamppost, a small smile playing on his lips, as if he held secrets of his own. Jake's heart raced anew. Why was he watching? What did he know? As Jake walked closer, curiosity entwined with apprehension, and the spark of their paths converging ignited a fire within him. Would he dare to uncover the mystery? Jake approached the man with hesitance, a myriad of potential scenarios flashing through his mind. What confidence had he just found? Every step felt heavy with expectation, yet the unknown was as enticing as it was frightening. The man raised an eyebrow, his enigmatic smile deepening, amplifying Jake's curiosity. "Exciting day for you, huh?" the man said, his voice smooth, almost playful. There was a glimmer of understanding in his eyes, a shared experience that made Jake wonder just how much the stranger had witnessed. "Yeah, you could say that," Jake replied, forcing words that barely skimmed the surface of the whirlpool churning inside him. The man gestured for Jake to sit next to him on the park bench.
It felt odd, yet natural, and Jake took a seat. He studied the stranger, searching for some hidden message in the creases of his smile. "Do you know why I'm here, watching you?"
Finally asked, breaking the silence. Jake hesitated. The question reminded him of the fact that most people would likely dismiss him without a second thought. "I'm not sure," he admitted, vulnerable and exposed. "I see potential in you, Jake, potential that many overlook." The statement hung in the air between them, charged with a truth that felt both daunting and exhilarating. You took a risk today, and not just in front of the committee. You stepped into the version of yourself that you've always hidden. Jake felt a flush of warmth creeping up his neck. The man's words peeled back layers of insecurity that he had grown accustomed to hiding behind. "But I don't think I can keep this up. What if I fall back into my old self?" The fear lurked, gnawing at the edges of his newfound resolve. Every champion has a shadow, Jake. It's the choices you make from this moment onward that will define you. Don't give power to your doubts. Embrace them and stand taller in the face of them. The man leaned closer, his stare piercing yet encouraging, as if he were peeling back the enfolding fog of doubt that often clouded Jake's clarity. "Why are you so invested in me?" Jake asked, daring to delve deeper. The man chuckled softly, a sound rich with experience. "Because I've been where you are. The desperation, the yearning to be more, it drove me too. I see a reflection." Jake took in the man's words, a sense of kinship stitching momentarily between their shared struggles. "What's next for you?" the man pressed, shifting the conversation forward, seemingly unfazed by Jake's inner turmoil. Jake contemplated the question, his mind a battleground of ideas at war with one another. "I guess I need to build on this. I don't want just fleeting moments of inspiration. I want to channel this energy into real impact." It felt good to say it out loud. The unsteady ground beneath him began to solidify as he spoke. "Then start with small changes," the man advised. "People will remember your charge, but it's your consistency that will solidify your legacy. Find a mentor, learn from them, and don't shy away from creating opportunities. You have to act for yourself, Jake. No one else can do that for you." Inside, the gears began to turn. Was mentorship the key? Should he seek out those he admired? The possibilities felt tangible, even intertwined with fear. As he started to respond, the man's phone buzzed. Glancing at the screen, he registered something swiftly, then turned to Jake, serious but encouraging. "You've got to seize this moment. Find your ambition, charge into it. But remember, the choice is yours to own. It's time to not just stand at the threshold, but to take that leap." With that, the man rose from the bench, a determined glint lighting his eyes. He started to walk away, motioning for Jake to follow. "But where will you leap to?" called back over his shoulder. "In the whirlwind of success or the chains of doubt?" Jake stood frozen for a moment, adrenaline racing through him. The man vanished into the bustling street, leaving Jake grappling with the magnitude of the choice laid before him. He stepped off the curb, heart pounding, the question resonating deeper within him. What would he make of this opportunity? The sun shone undisputed above, illuminating a path just ahead. But just as Jake took a breath, a familiar sound reached his ears, a distant echo that twisted his gut. There it was again, the low laughter that had haunted him since childhood. They hadn't forgotten him after all. Would they destroy this newfound resolve, or would he finally step past it? Jake squared his shoulders and clenched his fists. The moment had come to face the realization in his heart. He could either run from his doubts or take action and confront his past. The stakes escalated, and the challenge became crystal clear. Would he stand up and redefine his narrative, or revert to an old role that had never truly belonged to him? The challenge was undeniable, and Jake could feel the walls around him closing in, forcing him to confront what he feared most. Jake took a deep breath, his heart racing as he felt the hot breath of past insecurities lapping at his heels. The laughter echoed once more, mingling with the vibrant sounds of the park, and he pushed against it, desperate for clarity. It was time to decide, would he succumb to fear or rise with determination? He turned away from the familiar sounds, seeking solace within the park, its trees standing tall as stalwarts against the backdrop of uncertainty. He recalled the man's words, "Find a mentor." Who could that be? Who could illuminate a path obscured by self-doubt? As he walked through the winding paths, Jake's mind turned over possibilities. Teachers, authors, even his high school counselor, Miss Palmer, came to mind. She'd once told him that potential was a skill shaped by effort. Maybe it was time to reconnect. The thought brought him a flicker of hope. A determination settled in his chest as he approached the entrance of the park. He could feel the glint of opportunity pressing against the weight of past failures. With every step, he imagined his vision taking shape, a classroom full of eager faces ready to learn. But before he could dwell further, another familiar laughter drifted through the air, sharper now, taunting him. Jake stopped in his tracks, the shadows of memory swirling. It wasn't just laughter, it was ridicule, the haunting echoes of nameless peers belittling him, weaving insecurity into every step he'd taken up till now. He fought the urge to retreat, to fold in again under the specter of their judgment. "Not today," he muttered to himself, grounding his resolve. He pushed forward, but with every stride a new weight pressed upon him. With no one rooting for him, what made him? Think he could step into a world that had once rejected him? It was a moment of reckoning. This could be his turning point or his downfall. It was a stage within his mind that loomed just as large as the physical park around him. As he approached the park's entrance, a sudden vision of himself walking confidently through an inspiring classroom framed his thoughts. He could see young minds igniting with curiosity, each asking questions that propelled them forward. He envisioned their laughter, not of mockery, but of genuine joy and discovery. That solidified everything. The laughter had once stung, but it could serve a new purpose. If he could share his journey, if he could show others that past insecurities needn't define their future, it could become a powerful lesson. Turning on his heel, he dashed back into the park. There had to be a way to transform his weaknesses into strengths. He needed to channel this energy into creating a space for himself and others. Perhaps speaking out about his story, encouraging those who stood at a crossroads like he had. Suddenly, an idea surged. What if he documented this journey? He could start a blog or a series of workshops, engage in dialogue with those daring to dream despite self-doubt. It was a way to hold himself accountable, a way to reach back for those silently struggling. With newfound purpose coursing through him, Jake pulled out his phone while he sat down on a nearby bench. It wasn't just about confronting the shadows anymore. It was about shining light on them. His fingers hovered over the screen as he began to type. "This is Jake. I'm on a journey of growth." He felt empowered with each word, rediscovering clarity amidst chaos. Just as he reached a flow, a text pinged from an unknown number. Frowning, he quickly opened it. "Jake, we need to talk. It's about the committee and your proposal. Key decisions are being made. Call me." Jake's heart leaped. This was it, his chance to blend personal insight with professional aspirations. But as excitement flooded in, doubt crept back. What if they reject his ideas outright? Jake exhaled deeply. It was time to confront not just his past, but the challenges that lay ahead. He stood up, phone in one hand, a plan taking shape within him. The urgent thrum of anticipation surged anew. He was drawing closer to the moment he would face the most significant challenge of his evolution, the committee's decision about his future. With each step toward the exit, Jake carried his plan, his ambitions, and something forceful, his determination, as both armor and weapon.
He was ready to show them, and himself, that this time fear would not govern his story. As he dialed the number, he felt torn between anxiety and anticipation. The moment of truth approached. He could feel it humming in the air around him. What would be revealed in the call? Would his proposal achieve the impact he sought, or would it
all crumble before him? The choice was upon him. Would he embrace this challenge as the catalyst for his transformation, or would he falter under the weight of self-doubt once more? The phone rang, a sound that seemed to stretch time itself, each second drawing out his mounting anxiety. It felt as though the universe conspired against him, playing tricks in the spaces between tones. Finally, a voice broke the silence, and his heart raced, not from fear, but a surge of purpose. "Jake, it's Mark from the committee. Thanks for calling back." The tone was brisk, the cadence professional. "Hi, Mark. I appreciate you reaching out." Jake's voice felt steadier than he expected. "Let's dive into your proposal. We've been reviewing the ideas you submitted regarding the mentorship framework." Mark's voice held the weight of the decision that could either buoy Jake's aspirations or send them sinking. Jake listened intently, his mind racing with possibilities. This was the moment of connection he had craved, an opportunity not just to be heard, but to pave a path for others like him. As Mark laid out the committee's thoughts, Jake mentally prepared his responses, keenly aware that every word mattered. "There's potential here," Mark continued, "but we want to ensure it resonates with our community. We believe it needs a personal touch. How does your story fit into this?" That was the linchpin, the critical angle he had pondered while writing. Suddenly, the laughter of his past seemed like fuel. "My story is not just about overcoming obstacles," he began, his voice modulating with a conviction he hadn't fully realized he possessed. "It's about harnessing those experiences to impart growth, both for myself and for others facing similar struggles." The subsequent silence felt heavy, laden with weighty anticipation. Jake could practically feel the committee's scrutiny, their judgment measured against his newfound resolve. Mark cleared his throat, and Jake plunged into a recounting of his journey, narrating with genuine candor about the self-doubt that had shadowed him but ultimately propelled him towards seeking mentorship. He spoke of how he envisioned creating a space for dialogues around vulnerability, empowerment, and growth. "Your personal experience can connect with the audience," Mark said, shifting gears, "but we also need metrics. How will you gauge its success?" Jake hesitated, then spoke slowly, deliberately. "I want to build actionable steps that participants can track personally. Levels of confidence, peer interactions, maybe even shared platforms for feedback. Success should not only be measured in attendance, but in tangible transformations." The conversation continued, Jake's ideas flowing in a torrent, fueled by an unshakable belief in what he was building. As Mark finally wrapped up the call, Jake couldn't help but feel a frisson of hope. "Jake, you've given us a lot to think about. We'll be in touch soon." With the call ended, exhilaration coursed through him. For the first time, those haunting echoes from his past felt distant, bordering on insignificant. He had stepped forward, asserting not just a plan, but a commitment to self-discovery and the ambition to uplift others. Returning to the park, the environment seemed different, its vibrancy intensified, as if nature itself recognized his resolve. Each step became a transition from doubt to action. Yet beneath the thrill, an unsettling thought lingered. Would the committee really back his vision? Would they embrace the personal aspect he had integrated with his professional ambitions? Jake pondered these questions as he sat on the bench again and took out his notebook to jot down reflections. Suddenly, a flurry of doubt washed over him. What if they returned with hesitations? What if his vulnerabilities were too raw, too personal? Those anxieties slipped from his fingertips onto the pages as he poured himself into his journaling, seeking clarity through written words. His pen scribbled resolutely, but as he finished a thought, The same unknown number flashed on his phone screen. A new wave of uncertainty washed over him. Was this a follow-up, pushing the committee's feedback into untrodden territory? He hesitated, the fear of the unknown creeping back in, gnawing at the edges of his newfound confidence. Taking a deep breath, he answered the call. What awaited him on the other end could either solidify his path forward or threaten to undermine the progress he had fought so hard to achieve. "Jake, we need to talk again," the voice said, and he sensed an urgency that flickered like the Kenshin inside him. Would this conversation mark another turning point for his evolving journey? Would he be ready to face whatever challenge lay ahead? Jake's breath hitched as the voice on the other end carried an unexpected weight. He felt the pulse of uncertainty quicken in his chest. "What's this about?" he asked, his voice steadier than the turmoil inside. "It's about your proposal. There are some concerns," the voice said, an edge of steel lacing through it. "We want to ensure it truly aligns with our goals. It might require some adjustments." Jake clenched his jaw. A wave of disappointment threatened to wash over him. The vision he had crafted meticulously now felt threatened. What kind of adjustments? Primarily focusing on the metrics you mentioned. "We need something more quantifiable," the voice continued, the urgency pulsing through every word. "Also, there's been a suggestion to tone down the personal elements. You know how traditional frameworks tend to lean." Jake's heart sank further. It felt as if his dream hung by a thread, teetering on the edge of reality. He had poured his soul into making this mentorship program authentic, drawing from personal experience to create something that resonated deeply. Now they were asking him to dilute that essence. Could he bend without breaking? "I see," he forced out, trying to mask the tremor in his tone. Inside, questions whirled like a storm. Did he even want to pursue this if it meant sacrificing his core beliefs? The battle between ambition and authenticity roared within him. "Consider what we've discussed, Jake. I know you're passionate, but we need to balance that with practicality. We want this to succeed." As the call ended, he felt a mixture of adrenaline and despair swirling violently. Sitting on the familiar park bench, he faced the emptiness that engulfed him. He had fought to get here, yet the very foundation of his vision was now under siege. What was success worth if it required compromising his values? The sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the path. Jake pulled out his notebook again, flicking through pages filled with ambitions, aspirations, and vulnerability. The words sprawled before him, bright against the smear of doubt. He wrote "authenticity versus acceptability" at the top of the page, staring at it as if expecting it to provide answers. The responsibility of others' expectations weighed heavily. He could sense a future drawing near, where he either conformed, becoming another faceless name in the professional landscape, or stood firm, risking potential rejection but fighting for something real. In his gut, he felt the embers of conviction rekindling. He had been nurtured by moments of vulnerability. They had shaped him, giving him purpose to uplift others. Could he risk dishonoring that narrative by caving to pressure? Jake scribbled down reflections like lifelines. Perhaps he needed to redefine success on his terms, one that married measurable outcomes with heartfelt connections. As ideas flowed anew, he began to feel emboldened, ready to confront the challenges ahead on his own terms. There was a growing resolve inside him, piecing together a strategy that could sustain his values while still meeting the committee's demands. He envisioned a middle ground, metrics that reflected genuine relationships and personal growth rather than mere attendance numbers. This could work. It had to. With renewed energy, he wrapped up his thoughts, adrenaline thrumming in sync with his heartbeat. Perhaps this was a moment of reckoning. Would he lean into his newfound courage or retreat into complacency? As the final rays of sunlight peeked through the trees, illuminating his path ahead, Jake knew a decision loomed. Would he be able to advocate fiercely for his vision, however unconventional it was destined to be? He had made strides before, but this felt distinctly more significant. He stood up, feeling the weight of the choices in the air. A gust of wind invited his next steps. A fresh determination filled him. It was time to craft a reinvigorated proposal that honored both his journey and the needs of the committee. But just as he took a step toward action, his phone buzzed again, the same unknown number lighting up the screen. An urgent thought pierced through him. Had the committee reconsidered? He hesitated for just a moment, the gravity of where this could lead pressing down on him. But curiosity forced his hand to accept the call. What awaited him could redefine everything he believed about his journey. Jake's heart raced as he brought the phone to his ear. He had hoped for clarity, perhaps even support. Instead, a voice greeted him, tinged with urgency. "Jake, it's Rachel from the committee. I'm glad you picked up. We need to clarify a few critical points before we proceed." Her words cut straight through his resolve, sending a ripple of anxiety through him. "What's going on?" he asked, determined not to show his growing apprehension. "I've been reviewing your proposal more closely," she said, her tone unwavering, yet somehow encouraging. "I realize now that some elements could benefit from a strong personal narrative. Your story has potential, but we need to weave in solid metrics that can actually resonate with the board's traditional framework." As the realization settled, Jake felt a flicker of hope igniting within that brief moment. "So, you're saying you might be open to including the personal elements after all?" "Yes, if we can anchor them with robust data, it might just appeal to everyone's vision of success," she replied. "What I'm suggesting is an opportunity, Jake. You have a chance to highlight how personal experiences can indeed drive measurable outcomes. It's a delicate dance, but you can pull it off." Her acknowledgement stirred something inside him. Could he truly merge his narrative with the statistical metrics they demanded? This was not just about refining the proposal, but redefining the whole concept. The femme fatale of doubt, however, lurked just at the fringes of his consciousness, provoking the familiar internal conflict. Was it possible to blend authenticity with acceptability without losing his essence? "I need some time to rethink my approach," he said, buying himself a moment of silence, the synapses firing rapidly in his mind. Rachel agreed, but the urgency of her next words struck Jake squarely in the chest. "We're in a competitive classification, Jake. Elevate your proposal, or we might lose this opportunity." The call ended abruptly, leaving him once again marooned on a precipice. He stood there under the canopy of the dusky sky, the world around him fading into a blur. The struggle began anew, clashing ideals surrounding him. Success that felt like a chain versus risk that could liberate him. He pulled out his notebook, raw energy coursing through him, and began to sketch out a new structure for his proposal. Metrics danced in his mind, alongside anecdotes of his past experiences, stories that had shaped him. As he wrote, an unexpected clarity surfaced. The emotional connection he desired didn't have to be discarded. It could serve as the backbone of his data. He envisioned sharing metrics demonstrating growth fostered through mentorship, using stories of individuals whose lives had been touched by his journey. Those stories could humanize the numbers. Fueled by this sudden revelation, Jake's mind raced through possibilities. This felt like a turning point, a critical evolution from mere resistance into a strategy that upheld his authenticity while addressing the committee's needs. He would channel his vulnerabilities into memorable narratives without sacrificing the core of his mission. He paused, the weight of his decision palpable. This was about more
Than just one proposal. It was about a belief, one that could inspire others to embrace their stories as a pathway to professional growth. It dawned on him that success could resonate deeply when intertwined with personal truths. As he envisioned the presentation, a potent blend of excitement and fear coursed through him. The upcoming meeting could either validate his newfound understanding or plunge him back into the depths of self-doubt. Yet, regardless of the outcome, Jake felt something shifting within, a resolve hardening to not only chase success, but to define it on his terms. Emerging from his reverie, he prepared to take actionable steps.
The framework was coming together, but a nagging question remained. Could he present his vision in a way that aligned with the committee and still felt like his own? The winding path ahead felt full of possibilities and pitfalls alike. He knew he needed to solidify his thoughts and confront this presenting challenge head-on. But as he resolved to push deeper into his creative process, his phone buzzed again, an urgent notification lighting up the screen. The message was from Rachel, but this time it felt different. "Jake, we need to meet. There's something important we haven't discussed. It could change everything." His breath caught. What else was lurking in the shadows of this endeavor? Jake stared at the screen momentarily, his heart thumping with trepidation. That simple notification hinted at layers he hadn't considered. What could Rachel possibly have to share that was so consequential? He felt an instinctive urge to dismiss it, yet admitting that small inclination stirred an undercurrent of anxiety in him. There was no escaping this situation. He swallowed hard, already penning a response in his head, anxiously debating whether to propose a time or simply ask for details. The more he thought about it, the more clarification felt necessary. Was Rachel's meeting a mere discussion about his proposal, or was there a greater upheaval on the horizon? The uncertainty gnawed at him, morphing his focus into a tangled web of anticipation and dread. As night fell and shadows crept into his apartment, Jake knelt at his desk, desperately sketching out ideas while his thoughts spiraled. Would there be more calculations needed? Would data drawn from his past experiences contrast adequately with the metrics required? What if her news undermined everything he'd worked so hard to define? He necessarily needed to harness his historical moments, each triumph, each setback, neither wasteland nor treasure trove. He didn't want to simply string these experiences together like beads on a necklace. They had to meld into a coherent narrative that sang to both heart and mind. Determined to finalize his approach, Jake distilled his candid thoughts and observations into the framework, hoping to unite personally impactful experiences with concrete metrics. He visualized sharing the story of his high school mentor, who had used tough love to break Jake out of a cycle of mediocrity. That was where he'd found his footing, developing a jubilant passion for mentoring others, a lesson he planned to intertwine with tangible outcomes. While piecing together the metrics, he sensed tension unraveling. These numbers exemplified the same transformation that his past had catalyzed within him: introspection, progress, and empowerment. The interconnectedness of his ideas sparked renewed vigor, enhancing the emotional significance of what he was building. Yet, in the whirlwind of creativity, he couldn't ignore that gnawing question. What revelation awaited him in Rachel's message? Perhaps the unseen truth could alter the paradigm of his proposal or even redirect the entire mission. He resolved to approach the meeting with a blend of curiosity and strategic intention, utilizing it as a launching pad to cement his vision. With newfound determination, Jake tailored the proposal, summarizing the statistics that would ground his experiential anecdotes. He needed to transcend the ordinary, illustrating how his story could echo through others' lives. Each personal anecdote, paired with resonant metrics, would breathe life into numbers, creating an authentic reminder of the reasons behind his ambitions. As hours rolled on, he combed through the final touches with an almost frenetic energy. Anticipation wrapped around him, eagerness punctuating every stroke of the pen. He needed to convey urgency and passion while embracing the possible critiques and questions that could arise from the committee. Finally, he hit send on a message to Rachel, proposing a time to meet the following day. A weight lifted as he turned away from his computer screen, wrestling with the shifting tides within. The strange blend of terror and exhilaration carried him into the night. Later that evening, he replayed Rachel's voice in his head, grappling with how a single message could sway the tides so drastically. She had mentioned elements yet undisclosed, and now the anxiety morphed into an acute sense of urgency. Answering his own internal questions felt necessary, but he needed the truth, all of it. Deep inside, he steeled himself for the meeting,
aware that a part of him was still skeptical about the potential changes Rachel hinted at. With his resolve renewed, he shut his eyes, surrendering to dreams of an unencumbered path ahead. Yet that underlying unease persisted, nagging away. As he turned to face the darkness, he felt a new wave of determination wash over him. Meeting the challenges head-on would forge the path to his personal and professional growth. Tomorrow loomed larger than just a meeting. It hinted at a profound turning point in his journey. But what if the new information could threaten his proposal? Was he prepared to adjust everything he had cultivated so far? Those thoughts lingered as he drifted to sleep, a silent phone lying at his side, waiting for the dawn to unveil its secrets. The morning sun filtered through the blinds, casting stripes of light across the room as Jake stirred awake. The lingering sense of dread and anticipation clouded his mind, the weight of the day ahead pressing down on him. He had no answers for the numerous questions swirling in his head. Every
moment from the previous day echoed, the message sitting unresolved in the back of his mind like a ticking clock. He climbed out of bed and moved through his morning routine in a haze. The ritual of coffee brewing and showering felt automatic, yet each action ignited a spark of awareness. This day wasn't just another workday. It represented continuity of his efforts, a chance for validation, or possibly upheaval. The duality of hope and fear intertwined with every movement. Jake arrived at the office early, the quietness amplifying the tension within him. He rifled through his proposal sheets, mentally rehearsing the points he wanted to stress. Just as he laid them out on his desk, a soft knock interrupted his thoughts. It was Rachel. She entered, a mixture of determination and apprehension lining her face. "Thanks for meeting with me, Jake," she stated, taking a seat across from him. "I know this might be a lot to digest, but—" He held up a hand, sensing the urgency embedded in her voice. "Before we get deep into this, can you tell me what's going on? I need to know if this impacts what I've put forward." Rachel exhaled sharply, collecting her thoughts. "Your proposal is solid, but we have new budget constraints. There's a chance funding might be cut, which means—" Her voice trailed off as if trying to soften the blow. Jake's heart raced. Was this the catastrophic news that could unravel everything? The fear of failure tightened around him, morphing his determination into something raw and primal. "So, it's a possibility my proposal won't even get the chance to be seen?" "Not necessarily," she replied, her eyes steady. "It means we need to rethink how we present it. We must align more closely with the new metrics that the leadership values, show more directly how our project impacts the bottom line." Jake felt a storm brewing inside him, a mixture of frustration and desperation. These shifts seemed systemic, but his journey had been deeply personal. The thought of diluting his vision felt wrong, but adaptation was key in his field. "I can reframe it," he said, feeling an enhanced resolve stir within. "But I need to ensure that the heart of my vision is preserved. I want this not just to be about numbers, but about impact." "Exactly," Rachel encouraged, sensing the determination in his voice. "Your heart is what captured our interest initially. We just needed to resonate with the financial expectations laid out." As they discussed strategies, ideas flowed between them. They rolled out new concepts, each one sharper and more compelling than the last. Jake felt the anxiety transform into something actionable, a fierce determination to recalibrate his proposal without sacrificing what he held dear. Hours sped by as they worked collaboratively, infusing new life into his proposal. Every keystroke brought him closer to marrying his past experiences with a financial narrative that could truly resonate with the decision-makers. "I believe we've struck a great balance here," Rachel declared, her eyes alight with enthusiasm. Jake nodded, a sense of purpose enveloping him. But beneath the surface, an undercurrent of uncertainty remained. Had they done enough? Would their revisions succeed in winning over the stakeholders? Finally, as they prepared to summarize their presentation, Rachel turned serious. "Jake, I truly believe in what you're doing. Just remember, adaptability is key, but stay true to yourself. It will resonate." The words burned into his mind, a mantra pushing him forward.
But as he left the meeting room, he couldn't shake the thought of whether he was truly prepared to balance authenticity with the necessities of a corporate world that often seemed at odds with his vision. With the deadline looming, Jake faced a crucial decision, one that would test both his resolve and his values. As he made his way back to his desk, feeling a blend of excitement and fear, he realized that this would be his largest personal challenge yet. What if the revisions he was making, meant to please higher-ups, stripped away the essence of who he was? Would he cave to the pressure or rise above it? The answers lay ahead, woven into the journey he still had to undertake. Jake stood at the threshold of a new beginning, the weight of the past merging with the potential of the future. His heart raced as he felt the solid core of determination swell within him. The meeting with Rachel had borne fruit. Fresh ideas now flowed through him like a current of energy. Yet, a single question remained. Could he present his refined proposal in a way that showcased his authenticity while aligning it with the expectations of the committee? He meticulously reviewed the points they had crafted together. The blend of personal anecdote woven with tangible metrics represented not just a synthesis of ideas, but a testament to his journey. Each line resonated with his experience, showcasing his transformation from doubt to determination. With the deadline closing in, Jake felt confident returning to the committee. His eyes flickered over the proposal one last time, grounding himself in the conviction that he was also there to tell the stories of others, to empower them, just as he had once found his empowerment. As he entered the meeting room, the committee members studied him, their expressions a mosaic of expectation. He took a deep breath, summoning the certainty that had grown roots inside him. This was no longer just a presentation, it had become a shared opportunity. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jake began, his voice steady, infused with passion, "I stand before you not just as a candidate seeking approval, but as someone deeply invested in transforming the lens through which we view potential." He articulated his journey candidly, detailing the insecurities that had threatened his aspirations. The laughter of his past classmates echoed through his storytelling, framing his evolution as an ongoing narrative rather than a lost cause. He shared how those shadows had shaped his ambition, fortifying his desire to create spaces where others could flourish. Every word he spoke intertwined with metrics he had compiled, data that showcased how mentorship not only transformed self-perceptions, but boosted confidence, achievements, and collaborative spirit among students. The committee members leaned in, their interest piqued as Jake animatedly bridged the discourse between raw experience and quantitative significance. He could see acknowledgement bloom in their expressions. The committee, at first a battleground of judgment and critique, shifted into a space of validation and potential concord. With each statistic he presented, he painted a picture of growth, one lit by the affirmations of a diverse spectrum of voices. Then came the moment he had rehearsed in front of the bathroom mirror countless times. If we can align ambition with actionable metrics, we can redefine success as not just numerical, but deeply personal. He let the weight of the statement sink in, the raw truth vibrating like a resonant chord. A moment of silence filled the room, compounding the gravity of his words. He watched as members exchanged glances, considering the narrative he had woven. Jake felt the boundary between his past fears and present affirmations blur, a liberation surging through him. In closing, he stated, "I am not just a solitary figure. I am a conduit for change. Let us ignite this project together, not solely to meet expectations, but toward authentic impact." As applause erupted in the small room, Jake felt an overwhelming rush of exhilaration and fulfillment. The balance he had sought, even in the midst of doubt, felt tangible, almost electric. He had stepped forward, not just as a candidate, but as a testament to resilience and the power of voice. Weeks later, as offers flooded in, bolstered by the success of his proposal, Jake experienced an indescribable shift. He had not only conquered his internal doubts, but had also solidified his position as a catalyst for mentorship in education. His ambition transformed into action, leading initiatives that resonated with students from all walks of life. Jake had demonstrated that he was not defined by the labels thrust upon him, but by the narratives he chose to share and the legacy he aimed to build. Standing in front of a classroom filled with eager faces, he felt affirmed. The laughter surrounding him was not one of derision, but of shared discovery. He had achieved the freedom he once sought, now wrapped in solid confidence and recognized competence. The journey had proved worthwhile, stretching from a cafe corner to the solid foundation of authenticity, empowerment, and unyielding belief in his purpose. He had embraced transformation, crafting a legacy that would inspire others to also fight for the stories that mattered. But this was just the beginning. And for every moment of growth he experienced, he continued to encourage those like him to rise and redefine their narratives, inviting them to share their truths. Now, this is your moment. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel. Don't wait even one more second to support and not miss the next exclusive.
Emotional stories that can transform your journey too. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and push this powerful message further. Comment your thoughts and theories about Jake's journey and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support makes a difference.